to be able to handle being present with the fear that's in our body. And that's how we actually calm ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So Gabor Mate talked about co-regulation emotionally. And so a child needs to have a self-regulated adults to co-regulate with. And right now, and so a lot of people didn't have that.
Mm-hmm.
But also right now, there's not very many people that are self-regulated because there's so much fear.
Hello, Awaken Beauties. Finally, it's here. The truth to empower women to true inner beauty through a healthy mind and inner biology. I am your hostess, Cassandra Keel, a 20-year salon owner, organic beauty product formulator, positive mind management, and clinical hypnotherapist. And I am here to help you stay sane, get sleep, and bring your sexy back. Sponsored by evokebeauty.com. evoqbeauty.com. Now, let's get to it. All right, ladies, if you're looking for healthy hair, beautiful skin, and a calm, quiet, clean, collected, powerful mind with superior CBD, go to evokebeauty.com. That's evoqbeauty.com. And you'll receive 25% off your very first order with the code AWAKEN. Again, that's evoqbeauty.com. Use the code AWAKEN for 25% off your first order. Welcome to the Awaken Beauty podcast. I am Cassandra, your organic beauty, positive mind management, and biofeedback practitioner. And this episode is extra special, and it is on point and on time to what we are dealing with at a global structure today. And at the time of this interview, we are experiencing the spread of the coronavirus. And for many, not only does the world feel less safe, but our everyday experiences of meeting our basic needs, such as going to the grocery store, can feel threatening. And we face an immense amount of financial and emotional stress. And on top of this, families may not have the skill sets and have the experience of and/or are experiencing complete disconnection while underneath the roof at the same time, feeling disconnected and isolated and looking for screens and video games and other addictions just to keep us busy from what we're experiencing today. And though it saddens me that we have to experience something so traumatic as a collective in order to be empowered to change, I think it's important to speak on the importance of seeing this current reality as a portal to opening ourselves up to creating new paradigms and new ways of being and healing from the past traumas and staying present in the now and how we can get help from others. Now, there are some people that show up in the world that you can hear and tune directly into and feel their sense of strength, their sense of love, groundedness, and presence. And that is the sense you will feel from our guests today, Lynn Fraser, as we discuss how we can open, connect, and create a space to embrace change and cultivate self-love through these challenging times, but even more so, seeing a door that is open to us for opportunity and transformation. Now, a little bit about our guest, Lynn. Lynn brings the depth of 22 years experience teaching meditation. She specializes in holding a safe, trusted space for healing trauma in her private online sessions. And then Lynn lives near her family, ocean and forest in Nova Scotia, Canada. She is senior teacher in the Himalayan yoga meditation tradition and an experienced facilitator of Scott Killaby's living inquiries. Fast forward 25 years from when I first learned meditation in the early 90s, I see and love myself. I am authentic and connect deeply. My body is relaxed and I know my space, and trauma is largely healed and resolved. I am mostly free of reacting and have skills to work with thoughts and sensation. I know from experience I can be with whatever is arising in the space and time. I feel at 66 that I now am an emotional, mature adult. So Lynn has experienced a profound recognition of present moment awareness and embodies it naturally. That's the kind of teacher anyone would want. If one's teacher does not have a direct experience in what is being taught, true transformation just cannot happen. And that comes from Scott himself. So Lynn, I want to welcome you to the show. Welcome to the Awaken Beauty Show. Thank you for joining us today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm really happy to be here.
Yes. And so, we were connecting quite a few months ago. And as we know, life is busy and we've all been brought to a halt. And so, you were one of the first people I thought of as far as, all right, we've got to get Lynn on the show. And your experience and your personal experience truly speaks for the work that you do. So maybe we can kind of start with just the basics of you and your experience and what led you to trauma and the specialization in trauma relief for so many individuals that you've helped with over the years.
Yeah, that's kind of an interesting journey. And, we all have our journeys around this, don't we?
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I had a what most people would see as kind of an idyllic childhood. I was safe. There was no addiction, no violence, both parents. But there was a lack of emotional connection. And so when I was 12, a couple things happened and I was really suffering and in trouble and there was nowhere that I could go for help. I couldn't talk to my parents. And I had a pretty turbulent, rough time as a teenager. I was publicly shamed. I was the bad girl. There was lots of stuff going on that was really difficult for me. And, I was really desperate at times. I used drugs, alcohol, thought about killing myself. It was hard. Mm-hmm. And then I kind of recovered from that through my, 18, 20s into, a period when I had a son. And I didn't understand anything about trauma then. I just thought, I'd had a kind of a rough teenage years, What I didn't realize is that I was actually in freeze. One of the trauma responses of fight, flight, freeze, fawning. I was in freeze. And so, things happened that weren't ideal for sure. But, I was kind of managing. And then in the early 90s, I'd been working with an AIDS organization since 1987. Very intense working environment. Mm-hmm. And I decided to start taking meditation and I just loved it. I just felt so at home and I started working with my mind. I started working with my breath and I started to understand. I've always been really interested in the psychology part of and this philosophy of meditation. I went along and, had several years of really deep practice and really starting to heal my nervous system. I was teaching yoga and meditation by that time. And then in 2004, I had a threat with my son was misdiagnosed with a serious form of cancer. Mm. And in the 9 weeks it took for them to say he didn't have cancer at all. He had mono.
Wow.
And I had a profoundly difficult time with that and really started looking into my childhood, his childhood, and did some therapy and did some healing around that. And things were just starting to settle down. And then in 2005, I was riding my bicycle to work and I was physically assaulted by a mentally ill person who was off of his meds on crystal meth. And he punched me in the head. I went off the side of the bike path and I thought he was going to kill me. Mm. And a woman who was riding behind me stopped, a stranger, started screaming, called the police, and he didn't kill me. So that was good. So I'd had these two life threats, one after the other, and within a year. And I ended up with PTSD after the assault. And because I'd been doing so much meditation and yoga and relaxing in my body, I knew a lot about the nervous system already. Mm-hmm. So I developed a program that I could kind of use to heal myself. And over about 6 months, I started to gradually be able to go out of the house without so much fear. And, my brain was healing, my body was healing. I did a certain, I've had these kind of points during my life where I've done some healing. And then in 2012, I connected with Scott Killaby to do the training to be a facilitator. And a few years later, I connected with Gabor Mate. I do the Radical Recovery Summit. So I find people, I interview them about innovation and recovery and addiction. And of course, he's well known as a person who talks about connection and addiction and talks about the people that are, that he worked with in Vancouver, heroin addicts, people with really serious drug problems. that they were all traumatized. And so he was one of the early pioneers in having us look more compassionately at addiction and looking through a trauma lens. And one of the things he said in my first interview with him was that effective trauma is that we disconnect from ourselves and from our sense of value and from the present moment. And that affected me so deeply because I could really look at that my whole life through that lens and the people that I was working with as well. And that led me on to a journey of really understanding trauma. And a lot of people think that they're not traumatized. I think right now with the coronavirus, a lot of people are going, yeah, I can see this as trauma.
Yeah.
And so we're having a collective experience of trauma right now and fear. We're having a lot of what's going on in my nervous system. Why am I so irritable? Why can't I sleep? And, I've done so much work healing my body and I have a pretty regulated life. I live alone with my puppy in the forest and I don't have a lot of stress, but I also have people that I love and care about.
Right.
So, I noticed that one night I woke up in 5 a.m. my whole body was tight. And my shoulders, which used to be always around my ears, have been creeping back up again, And so because I know how to work with that and how to downregulate, I'm able to kind of keep some equanimity there. In 2004, when it happened with my son's misdiagnosis, I had so much catastrophic thinking.
Yep.
I would go into the future and I see it's so common for us to do this now.
Yep.
I don't know what's going to happen. And what if this happens? And what if I die? What if this person that I love gets it? What if, I don't ever have a job again? There's so much fear and we don't know what to do. And so it really triggers our survival system. Yeah. So a few years ago, I wrote a book called Friends with Your Mind, How to Stop Torturing Yourself with Your Thoughts. And so all of those practices are really relevant right now to work with our mind skillfully, but also to recognize that the catastrophic thoughts in our mind are coming from the fear in our body generated by the nervous system. And so that's what I do now basically I work with people around healing trauma, but right now the trauma we're all working with is the fear of the situation that we're in.
Yeah, I think it's so beautiful and so important as far as a message right now, because, I think we can live a lot of our life. And I think I read somewhere in one of your blog posts or what have you, but you made a statement that as you reach the age of 40, you really truly found self-love and self-acceptance. And we're never too old to really truly meet ourselves where we can be in that place of self-love and that self-criticism. And, as far as like the sleep and all of these different trigger reactions on the body, we can only do so much with our conscious mind, where so much of it is subconscious. And so I tell a lot of my clients, I'm a clinical hypnotherapist, is there's still so many messages coming in energetically that there's such a global shift right now, and not even getting over esoteric, but there really literally such a shift globally that the mind and the body don't really know how to process it. And at the same time, I always like the analogy of we have an old system, we have the old Microsoft system, and we haven't, aside coronavirus, we haven't taken the time to really sit down, unplug, reboot, and then start working with the new system. And so we've got all these old patterns and old systems now running. And it's almost like they can become an echo chamber. So it's not necessarily that, coronavirus is creating its own subset of trauma. Just it is a global experience. Right. And to deny that is denial, because it's a real human experience. But those past traumas can be an echo chamber and be turned up in volume. And to what you're saying, the subconscious mind, and this is kind of where we can take this next, is I know that you know of flipping the lid model. Dr. Siegel.
Oh, yeah.
So we have the primitive brain and then the amygdala and the frontal cortex. And when we flip our lid, it's like we have no thinking brain of how to even directly think about how to experience it. We're just in complete trauma, walking around like this and absorbing everything and just trying to push it out because we don't know how to formulate it. And so your techniques and what you do with people is bring this back down so that their thinking brain can come back into order so that they can start working with the constructs that they have. All right, ladies, if you're looking for healthy hair, beautiful skin, and a calm, quiet, clean, collected, powerful mind with superior CBD, go to evokebeauty.com. That's EVOQbeauty.com. And you'll receive 25% off your very first order with the code AWAKEN. Again, that's EVOQbeauty.com. Use the code AWAKEN for 25% off your first order. So maybe we can shift into, what is happening with the body, taking that shame away from why we're feeling that we're feeling. And it's okay to move through that.
And, I find that a little bit of trauma education and nervous system education is so helpful.
Yeah.
Because just exactly what you say, people are shaming themselves for our reactions, but our reactions are built into our mammal bodies. Mm-hmm. So we all have a primitive brain. We all have that fight to survive. And we have these four, there's fight, flight, freeze, but fawning has been added recently as a fourth one. So these really common evolutionary, so this is what brought our ancestors through to pass their genes on to us. And it was very helpful when we lived in a kind of a world where tigers were coming up behind the bushes and we needed to be able to react. And now what we have is this primitive system, survival system, that's not very well suited for our modern life and culture. And in addition to that, if people have a lot of experiences of fear when they're young, even before they're born in utero, a lot of cortisol, a lot of adrenaline going through their system all the time, the amygdala gets bigger. Dr. Mate talked about that a little bit in a recent podcast with Russell Brand, just talking about what happens in the body. And so everybody's having, whatever experience we're having with the COVID-19, but depending on our prior trauma, we might be a lot more triggered and we might be having a lot more difficulty. So the first thing that we're going to always try to do with a threat is get away from it. We're going to try and run away and escape the threat, which makes sense. And then if we can't get away, we're going to fight or freeze. And so we have we kind of have a preference. Our body has a preference based on what's worked in the past.
Right.
So, when you were a kid, if you got yelled at and you yelled back and then they stopped yelling at you, you're probably going to have more of an anger response. If you yelled and then got in worse trouble, you're going to go into freeze, or you're going to turn that anger against yourself. And so we have these responses that are, we could really use a lot of cognition right now. We could really use a well-functioning brain.
Absolutely.
This is the exact time when a lot of people don't have very good access to it. So a threat of income is a threat that we respond to. A threat of social losses, social, status, and certainly a life threat. We could get sick, we could die, or people we love. And then we also have this experience of, we call them core deficiency beliefs of the reason things have been hard in my life is because there's something wrong with me.
Right.
Unlovable, unworthy, disgusting. And if you have that, then even just the social distancing feels personal. Like, I know in my head that it's not really because of that, but I'm experiencing this. So that makes it a lot harder for people too. So some people are, I'm in a really fortunate situation where I am. I'm safe and secure where I live. I don't have anybody in my house that's against me. And sometimes, people turn against each other, and it's just our survival systems are in gear. And then nobody's the adult in the room because everybody's triggered, right?
Yeah, everybody's triggered, and they are mostly responding out of the, lowest part of the brain. And that's, from, I really think, and I have a heart for these families right now too. It's, to shut down the kids from school and then to expect them to have the self-resiliency, to be self-disciplined, to get up and do their homework and to be compliant with their parent. And, where, I own a salon. And so, women are in my chair and I am utmost, I live a life of service. And so I try to be as present as I possibly can with them because I'm there to deliver a nurturing, whatever that is for them at that time. And you and I both can agree the addiction to the phones and what's next and the dings and the dopamine and all of this, when all of that's shut off, You have nothing else to be vulnerable to who you are and who you've become. And so even though it may be, a force out, like I can't be with my clients, there's just such a push against you as far as like pushing up against you. I don't know how to explain it, but there's just such a shutdown in the body. And so it's hard to bring that awakened again and just really start tap into it. And you and I had said to you, maybe now isn't the perfect time to go and dig up all your past trauma. But for hypnotherapy, I'm just helping people understand what you're saying is understanding the primitive brain, how it works, why it's trying to keep you safe. But also there's a positive side to this because it's your master. And if you can help your subconscious mind and kind of coach it along on what you want it to deliver for you, there's great opportunity there. And I think we just need people like you or professional help to really help us gather those tools and just kind of be mindful of the time that we have. What is something that you've been able to, even though you are kind of secluded in this beautiful forest and one dog, and I myself am single, so I don't have to deal with anybody else in my home, but is there something that has personally helped you? Is it a meditation practice or anything that is just kind of you keep coming back to that has helped you? Even clients coming to you with trauma can kind of start to kind of sting you a little bit with, energy. So what helps you?
So the most helpful thing I find is to be present in our own body.
Yep.
So somatic. And that's something that's been really growing in awareness the last 5 years, last 2 years, even a lot more. Everybody's talking about somatic healing now.
For sure.
And it's because it really is necessary. So, for instance, my son is at a bit of a higher risk. He has chronic asthma. And his wife's a doctor, so she will be exposed to it. And so for me, one of the things that comes up is a feeling of heaviness or tightness in my chest, and there's pain. And so I've been sitting with it, and I've been, facilitated around it too in the inquiry practice that I do. Part of what we do with a facilitator is you have someone there to just kind of help you stay present. And so we work with the energy. And so we start with, well, what do I feel in my body right now? And when we feel fear, it's often in our gut, or we have the tight shoulders, we're defending ourselves, And when we have some kind of heartbreak or sadness or grief, it's often in the chest and the heart area, the heart center. So I sit with that, and I'm present with it, and I welcome it. There's a really simple practice that we do, thank you for arising, that's kind of a variation of the Ho'oponopono prayer. And so you would just, and everybody watching could do this for just a moment, just kind of tune into your body, take a breath, and notice what's here. Notice if there's energy, sensation, or bring your attention into your heart center and notice what's there. And then to that energy, as though you're talking to that energy, say, thank you for arising. I love you. And you're welcome to stay as long as you like. And when we have pain, mostly we don't mean that. We want it to go away. And we have a whole culture that's built on addiction to make the pain go away. We don't want to feel it. And then at some point in our lives, and for a lot of us, it's right now. This has disrupted things in such a major way that we're just sitting here going, oh my gosh, what am I going to do now? To feel that pain, and then to see, well, what are the thoughts that are here? And for me, it's one of the things I was looking at was my son could die. I don't know that that's going to happen. I have no idea what's going to happen. They're taking all precautions, right? But that's the fear. And so then I could look at that, and there's different ways, we can put the words into this area here and just kind of do some tapping on them, take our attention into the sound and sensation of the tapping. So we have a lot of tools that I would use with people and with myself to remain present in this moment. So part of it is, your feet on the floor, your seat in the chair, your breath, and to be present in our physical body, and to be able to handle being present with the fear that's in our body. And that's how we actually calm ourselves. So Gabor Mate talked about co-regulation emotionally. And so a child needs to have self-regulated adults to co-regulate with. And right now, and so a lot of people didn't have that. But also right now, there's not very many people that are self-regulated because there's so much fear. So in a regular crisis, you might be able to go to your friend who's pretty stable. But right now, everybody's really struggling.
Yeah, everybody's experiencing their own kind of trauma, whatever that is for them, whether it's financially or I've had a number of, a lot of the women I serve are 45 plus and, a number of them very, very concerned for their parents. My mother herself, when we as women and nurturers of our parent, we can't go into the facility to help them eat, love them up, A fear that's come up for me is I've always told my mother, I said, Mom, the time and point, if it ever comes that you can't see grandma, and, I don't want to go there, but I say that's when I see her decline and her actually passing away, because it's that human connection that's keeping her alive that I know in my heart and my intuition. All of those things can kind of come up. And I have to say, so what? We cannot control everything. And the somatic experience is definitely needed. And I think, the facilitation that you've gone through sounds really great, because it's important that someone gives you permission to continue to work with it in your presence, because we live a life, of addiction and pushing that down or away and work and all of that. Like I said, it's all those constructs have been pulled away. For me personally, going outside, my previous thought process was I'm such an earthy person. I'm so frustrated. I don't choose. I can't go outside because I'm so busy. I'm taking every moment, and I actually can feel my cells and the energy in my body being invigorated, filling back in. I feel the expansiveness in my body versus the contraction. So paying attention to that gives you a clue that you're going in the right direction of recreating and rebooting your system and looking for new possibilities. Because if you ask the mind what it can give you and what you need from it, it's your master. It will serve you. But like you were saying, pushing up on, the negativity is it's gonna bring more negativity, what you focus on. So Dr. Gabor Mate, I'm just, I think we both love his work and have both been and the industry has been very influenced by him. Working with him, this piece of the addiction and even in utero and, moving through that, the childhood experience, oftentimes, we don't have a thinking cognitive brain till the age of 8. So all of those memories and small or big traumas are stored, whatever that looks like. Can you speak a little bit more about the work with Gabor Mate and how that has really opened up your mind and how you maybe practice with your clients?
So one of the, his definition of trauma being that we disconnect from ourselves. And a lot of what that looks like in people is a really severe inner critic. Mm-hmm. That mean, nasty voice. What's the matter with you that you can't get more done? What's the matter with you can't get out of bed right now? And just that nastiness. And sometimes that's a voice we heard as a child. Yeah, that's for sure. But it can happen in other ways too. The disconnection can be just a deep freeze where we just kind of sleepwalk through our life and we get really busy. But one thing I think is really interesting is how there's so many people that want to go outside right now. Mm-hmm. So it's like we have that sense of that. Mm-hmm. And that's what we actually really need, is to be outdoors. We need fresh air. We need to be moving our bodies. Yeah. And, I feel really sad for people in really populated areas that aren't actually even allowed to go outside. Yeah, I have some people that I work with in New York City and in the UK, and they're allowed to go out for 1 hour. Wow. And there's police everywhere to monitor that, And so to be in a situation where you can get out more is so helpful. But even to, stand at an open window and feel the air and the sun in your face. So what we often do is we'll shut down, and that's how we disconnect. And so the reversing of that then would be to connect. Yeah. And it's hard to do that. We can't do that physically necessarily right now. But, we can call an old friend, or we can get on an online platform, and I think people are really seeing that and craving that and trying to do that. And whereas it, like you said, even a few weeks ago, it seemed like you were too busy to go outside. Mm-hmm. All of a sudden now it's like, there's this real stop. It's like, wow. What am I doing in my life? Is it in alignment with what I really feel is important? Yeah, so true. So true. Opportunity. I paid for this big mastermind mentorship group for the year. And the Monday they were telling us that we had to shut down all of our salons, all non-essential, with the threat of that it could maybe go into fall. That day I was
presented with a deadline of signing up for this year-long mentorship, which was not cheap. It was over $12,000. And I felt, going back to the somatic, I felt so much suffocation in my body and so much contraction by not putting the money on the table. But by putting the commitment to myself, knowing that I had accountability, I had somebody helping me, and not letting my mind be to my own device, it was something I knew I had to do. And so I think we need to follow those feelings of where we need to go, who we need to call, what kind of constructs we want to tap into. And I think you would agree, not watch the news, because these are all small, low vibrational inputs that are coming in. And what we let in is the output that we get. So it's another way to kind of look at how are we acting, all of that. So what are those inputs that we're bringing in and finding the help that we need, or just finding quiet music, or laying down in Shavasana and resetting the nervous system, or doing breathing techniques like you're speaking about. But I remember a story with Gabor, and this is coming to mind because how we've always showed up for other people, and how like you or myself have kind of always been maybe a leader because we have a passion and an empath for people to find their truth and authenticity. He shared a story about going to the hospital. Remember, I'm not sure if you know this story, but his mom was in the hospital, and I think he was limping or something like that. He had an injury, and he noticed when he opened the door and he walked into the room that he walked perfectly, pristinely, like a normal person to her bedside, and was the rock for his mom. And then he just graciously, after that, walked out. And then when he closed the door, he started limping again. I think that's also something very interesting. And that story came up because we're always used to being like helping others, but there's also a truth back to what you're saying, is that everybody's experiencing the trauma.
Right.
For you, listeners of Awaken Beauty podcast, Audible is offering a free audiobook download with a free 30-day trial to give you the opportunity to check out their service. Simply go to www.audibletrial.com/Awaken Beauty podcast. That's www.audibletrial.com, Awaken Beauty podcast. And so for you, could you maybe speak into, we don't know it right now because we're kind of in that shock phase. How could you speak into what that PTSD experience is, and how it's okay because we're experiencing the shock that's to be expected, and how we can kind of transition, and what that transition usually looks like for PTSD? Because I would certainly say, whether small or large, however that is for someone, that's certainly what people are experiencing. And or we'll look back a month or 2 months and say, oh my gosh, that was PTSD.
Right. One thing that is helpful, I think, to start with is that there's ordinary trauma, or little t trauma, which a lot of people don't really give much weight to. Mm-hmm. So, it might have been you were bullied at school, but it didn't feel like it was that serious. Or, we compare our trauma with somebody else who had it worse.
Right.
One of the things that I really appreciated about ACEs, the Adverse Childhood Experiences Score, is that emotional neglect is part of that.
You bet.
So even though I wasn't beaten or called names, or I didn't have that addiction in the house or something, I also had an experience of I was on my own.
Yep.
That's really threatening to people.
And that's survival. You always felt like you had to be in survival. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely it is. Yeah. And so that's one thing to know, is that even if we don't think we've had big T trauma, like we haven't been in war, we haven't had that kind of abuse that we think of like that we still have, many of us have the effect of kind of ordinary trauma, the pain of human life, we might say. Mm-hmm. And then something like this comes along, and it's a big T trauma for everybody, even though big T trauma might be thought of like as a, like an assault or something like that. But even though this is lasting for weeks and months, it's also sudden. So our whole world just kind of fell apart. And it was about 3 weeks ago, kind of mid-March, people were starting to go, wow, it's in the United States and Canada, it's in Europe. This isn't something far away anymore. This is something that we actually have to change our behavior. We have to, everything just shifted. And so what do we do with that knowledge? Well, one of the things we can do is learn enough about the nervous system to go, these are normal responses.
Yep.
Irritability, rage, trouble sleeping, overeating, any kind of an addictive thing, turning against each other. And those are all primitive brain things. And so if we could relax our system, our cognitive brain will come along and we'll have more resources. So that's something that's really important. And it's really possible. So, these daily practices that I do online, lots of people have really healed significantly just by doing those practices regularly.
Yeah.
So learning how to breathe to downregulate the nervous system. When we're in that threat mode, where our sympathetic nervous system is way overblown, we're hypervigilant, we're always scanning for threat. And when we can do some deeper breathing, and there's some really simple tools like Dr. Peter Levine, another really recognized trauma expert, talks about using the syllable VU and breathing out longer. So if you can breathe out 6 seconds or longer, it helps to activate your relaxation system. And
does that also go into the vagus nerve?
Yeah, Stephen Porges talks about the polyvagal system and the vagus nerve, right? Yeah. And so a lot of people are starting to go, okay, so I have this really hyperactive nervous system, and that's a symptom of PTSD.
Yeah.
And then we also have complex PTSD, which relates more to childhood brain development that didn't happen. So through some kind of abuse, neglect, those kinds of circumstances. And as we work with our breath and we work with downregulating our nervous system, we start to have some confidence in our ability to actually downregulate. So we can do these breathing patterns of, longer exhalations, or we can do like the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 senses practice, or we look around the room and name 5 things we can see. We go through the senses. Andrew Weil talks about 4, 7, 8 breathing a lot, where we breathe in for 4, we hold for 7, we breathe out for 8. And so there's some emergency practices when we're starting to panic. We can do some of those things.
Yeah, I think breathing is probably, one of the best and most short-term, autonomic nervous system shift and reset that we can do.
Yeah, absolutely. And so those experiences start to give us confidence that we're actually not out of control, that we can actually do something with our nervous system. And then we have the longer term to do relaxation practices, to do, something every day. Getting out and walking is one thing. Being around people who love us and who aren't critical of us helps us to feel safer. And to put, like what's happened just recently is that everyone's going, actually, I can't wait for this any longer. I actually need to do something right now. And it will really help. And then our nervous system experiences that. And then we start to just have that more resilience and strength in the nervous system. And
I really like how
breathing.
I love how you framed it, the confidence, because if you're already in this pattern of self-abuse and you're just beating yourself up, breaking free from that and getting the confidence that you can bring yourself self-regulation. Anybody and everybody certainly has the opportunity to do that. And so I really like how you use the word confidence and that it takes repetition. Something that you do is you offer meditation every morning. And how many years have you been doing this?
Almost 5 years. It'll be 5 years in December. It started as a 30-day thing. I was just going to offer it in December 2015. And, people liked it. So we just kept going with it.
So what do you do if you don't feel like doing meditation in the morning?
I always feel like it.
But to your point, it's offering others, for everybody listening, on her website, you can go ahead and tap into that Zoom call. That's one thing that you can do today. That the sacredness of Lynn's voice coming through this podcast invites you into that space where you can start creating just one habit, half an hour. Great way to start experiencing that.
And there's a gradually building experience in our body that we need of safety and downregulation. And, for parents who have children at home right now, especially, the most important thing to do with your children is to help them work with their nervous system.
Yeah.
So that means we have to work with ours first.
Yeah.
But to do some dancing or do something to shake the body and kind of get some of that fear out of the body and to do
Yeah.
some breathing and to work with the mind and just to validate, hey, this is a scary time right now. You don't get to see your friends right now. And I understand that that's hard. And how can we all form an alliance so we can work together and get through this and not be fighting against each other all the time? And
Yeah.
that's all about the nervous system.
Absolutely. Yeah, it does, it really takes the shame away or it takes off the confusion when I always talk about the Awaken Beauty podcast is helping women. And now it's beyond, it's adding the mind, but connecting their beauty and biology. Because if I'm doing somebody's hair, but we're talking about her hair loss, it has nothing to do with what the external is. The real conversation is what are the stressors in your life that are maybe kicking off your thyroid that are causing you to have hair loss. It always goes back to what are you experiencing and hanging on to that the body is reacting in such a way for an extended amount of time that's resulting in X. And so another piece that I like to share with clients is the power of imagination. So I think you would agree probably, we are talking about meditation by ourselves, or if you've never done meditation, probably maybe wouldn't be the first thing to go to if you're by yourself and trying to do that, because it does take kind of a discipline to come back to your body. And maybe something more like a guided visualization or a guided meditation is better to help guide you through that. And the imagination is so powerful. I mean, when I teach hypnotherapy, clients, we have the critical factor filter, and anything that we let back behind that are all subconscious pieces that are we're going to blow up. And so we're really going to create a magnifying glass and blow up our imagination 200, 300 times what the reality really is. So I just kind of want to put that as also a checkpoint out there, is making sure that we're using our imagination for good and not allowing it to run wild, because that little child in there is running wild, and we need to bring it into the front faculty and agency and make sure that we're really present and conscious in our day versus just letting our imagination run wild. And so maybe we do a visualization technique maybe a couple times a day, or go for a walking meditation. Those I think are good tips too.
Mm-hmm. My meditation teacher used to say the greatest gift you can give the world is a peaceful mind.
Love that.
Yeah. So when something like this happens, it's hard to stay self-regulated.
Mm-hmm.
The more that we can do that, the more we can help other people. And it might be that you can help your children. It might be that, you can get on the phone with friends and help them to kind of settle. It might be that you're not a jerk at the grocery store.
Mm-hmm.
But, we just need to have that felt sense of safety. And we can always connect with ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So that's part of the gift of this time, if people are able to, is to really tune into what's going on with me right now. And am I disconnecting from myself because it's so scary? And that would be the case for many of us, at least part of the day.
Mm-hmm.
And how can I really bring kindness and compassion? This is a hard time.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody has a lot of fear. And even if we're working with it very successfully, it still takes a lot of energy.
Mm-hmm.
And we're probably not sleeping as well as we normally do. So we're more tired.
Yep.
We're craving those things that in the past have helped us to settle. And some of those things are helpful things and some of them are not.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a really difficult thing right now. And fear tends to bring out the worst in
Mm-hmm.
many people.
Yeah, it's like lowest vibration that we could. Shame and fear is lowest vibration. And so that can really, putting it in context, tanks the immune system. It just drags our immune system down and doesn't allow the body to feel safe to free up. And all of the cytokines, we talk about the virus being a cytokine storm, but we're really creating our own cytokine storm by just being in that lower state of fear. And so I think it's normal to recognize it. Say, fear, I see you here. Thank you. You said, thank you for being here. You can stay as long as you'd like. But I think for me, and just saying that out loud, it doesn't seem so scary.
Right. And it is here.
Mm-hmm.
We might as well be truthful about that. We do have fear. And that fear isn't the end of the situation. Like
Right.
We can work with it. We can calm ourselves. We can connect. We can be kind. And that's what really helps to lessen the fear. Like I know for myself, when I'm feeling kind of my shoulders are starting to get tense, that was always my old standby, was my shoulders.
Yeah.
And we have that kind of bracing through the back of our body because we're kind of bracing for trouble, And I interviewed Dr. James Gordon. He wrote a wonderful book called The Transformation. And he works with large traumatized populations. And you can find his work. He did some 60-minute interview, and he's been on NBC. He's a really wonderful person to talk to about trauma. He worked with Parkland School shooting people after that happened. Wow. And what he does is this beautiful practice of shaking and dancing. So there's breathing, and you breathe in and say soft, and you breathe out and through your mouth and say belly. So you do that for a few minutes. And then you stand up and you start to shake. And so you shake through your legs, and your hips, and your shoulders. And you do that for like 7 minutes.
Wow.
So when I first heard of it, I'm like,
it's a long time.
That's a long time. And then you breathe for a couple more minutes, and then you put on some kind of music you like, and you dance for 4 or 5 minutes. And so I interviewed him in, I think it was November. And I've been doing that practice almost every day since.
I love that.
And it's so calming. And so I'll be sitting here and I'll notice, I'm writing my newsletter, I'm doing something, and I'll notice my shoulders are kind of tense. And I'll get outside. I do it outside on my deck. And I turn on the music and I do that, and I feel so much better.
Yeah.
And if I don't feel better in the 15 minutes, then I'll do it another 15, And just to do something that gets us in our body and releases some of that fear is really helpful. Helps us to,
and that goes back to energy. Everything is energy.
It goes back to energy, yeah.
And wants to come in, and you got to shake it off and move it out. So I love that. I really, really love that. Get up and turn some music on. I have done that a couple of times. Yeah. And two, working around the house, like you said, shaming yourself because you don't have the energy to, I think you said you've seen things on Facebook and for me, I'm always on lives, and I'm always doing Facebook or Instagram more so. And I'm not choosing to get my correspondence that way at this time at all. And the time I am putting in is having podcasts where I'm intimately having a discussion with someone. And then outside of that, I'm reinventing myself, and I'm reinventing my biofeedback program and my hypnotherapy business, because that's what really brings true value and how I can serve right now. So, spending time and reinventing and exploring new possibilities versus, numbing things down and entertaining. I think there's so much consumption, but consumption also wears us down. It makes us more confused. Is it bringing me confusion or clarity? And we really need to search for clarity right now. And CNN and Fox News is not where to find that. All right, ladies, if you're looking for natural, organic, solution-based beauty and superior CBD, go to evoquebeauty.com. That's EVOQbeauty.com and receive 25% off your very first order with the code AWAKEN. Again, that's EVOQbeauty.com. Type in the code AWAKEN for 25% off your first order.
And one of the really interesting things about this explosion of online practices and support is that you can literally turn on a Facebook Live or go to people's websites and see and join Zoom meetings. And there are all these things that you had to live in a certain location to see that teacher. A lot of them are all free now. And you can, like Dr. Rick Hansen, I've interviewed him a few times. He's a wonderful neuropsychologist, really practical, really helpful. He's live streaming everything on Wednesday nights, I think now. And, Tara Brock has some wonderful practices, and NChem and DEFO has the Resilience Project in LA. And she's got a whole series of small groups that you can go to. And so there's really wonderful resources right now for people. And so to not shame ourselves for not reaching out for that as much as we might think, well, I should do every day, but to just try to do something every day that connects you with yourself, that, where you can be kind with yourself and just acknowledge it's a hard time right now, and I'm really doing my best. And I want to come through this with, some pretty stable mental health and some more insight maybe into what I really value. I have three grandchildren. The two boys are younger, and I don't think either of them are really all that sad that they're not at school. Yeah. And so they get to hang out with the family more. They're cooking together. They're doing meditation together every day. And I think they're actually really enjoying it. So it isn't a complete disaster, this whole situation.
And even thinking about families that are maybe avoid things by the screen or what have you, at some point in time, if you're stuck in the home for 2 months, it will force you to have to dine together. It will force you to have to coordinate together. Now, it saddens me that domestic violence and all of that is on the rise, but we can look at hope for families. There is hope for families to be able to come back together. And I always think back into like the 40s and 50s, and I can feel the energy of that time and like just the wholesomeness of the family at that time, and how much of that we've lost, and how America was so great at that time, and the Great Revolution and all of that. And think about that when we come back with the economy, that we're less separated, we're more together as a globe. And we've used the constructs of what have the information that has kind of pulled us apart to now use it for our good out of personal choice. And that this is a reinvention of the globe when we go back. So I kind of think about this back in the 40s and 50s of this, this revolution happening again in an entirely different way. It's a total reset, which is, I really celebrate. I'm really happy about that.
Mm-hmm. Well, and the thing that we could do better this time is to have more truth and authenticity and more trauma informed, that we're not just pretending everything is okay. But certainly the economic structure of the middle class disappearing has put so much pressure on families.
Oh, for sure.
Having one person at home to kind of take care of the family and to have that ability to not have two people working flat out all the time.
Yeah.
That's been a really negative impact. So if that could change, that would really make a difference. Children have such a hard time right now. There's so much pressure. Yeah. A lot of kids are dealing with, blended families and going back and forth with custody.
Yeah, good point.
It's really tough for kids right now. And so if the parents aren't really self-regulated, they're not really able to provide that connection with the kids. And, there's so many, you mentioned Dan Siegel earlier. And there's so many great resources. He and Tina Payne Bryson have got some great stuff around children. And it's all about connection. Everybody's circling back to connection, that we need to be connected with ourselves and with each other. Yeah. And that's something that we can do. That's also very possible.
And with the earth, we're organisms that live within the earth. And for us, for so long, we've modulated our day to get up at 4:30 because we need an hour and a half to just get awake. We have an opportunity to kind of reset our circadian rhythms and start living with nature again too. And I think it's really a beautiful piece that we can tap into. So I think from today's discussion is, yes, there's this reality of being honest with ourselves about trauma, and that we are experiencing trauma right now, and just being cognitive of that is okay. You don't need to go down into the body and, okay, I'm going through trauma, but just to be aware that we're going to come out of this, and then just creating the right constructs of support system we feel are right and true for us, I think are the most important things that we can do right now as we reinvent ourselves and listen to beautiful people like you. So thank you so, so much, Lynn. Is there anything else that you would want to share or would be helpful with our guests? I'm certainly going to share your website, your YouTube channel. There's all kinds of breathing exercises, and you do such a wonderful job of just a sweet, sweet sincerity behind your voice. And just, I think people could probably binge on your YouTube channel because they're short, they're fun, they're sweet. Is there anything else that you want to share today on the Awaken podcast?
I one of the recent guided practices on my YouTube channel is, I think it's called Kindness is All You Need. And when I say that to people, I say, really, in order to heal, kindness is all you need. Yep. And they're like, you've got to be kidding me. It can't be that simple. And in order to be kind with ourselves, and I'm talking about with ourselves primarily, and then it goes out with other people too. But in order to be kind with ourselves, we have to be on our own side. Yep. And we have to heal and have some kind of inspiration that it's going to be helpful and possible to be a friend to ourselves, and to stop turning against ourselves, and to understand that that's a mechanism that happens in childhood. When we turn against ourselves, we're trying to keep ourselves safe. When we feel fear and when we're holding our breath, all those things that catastrophic thinking, those are all mechanisms to try to keep ourselves safe.
Yeah.
Our whole system, our body, our mind is always trying to do the best thing for us.
Yeah.
And so if we could welcome that and have compassion for ourselves and each other, this is a really hard time. Mm-hmm. And to feel that connection with each other is really healing. Yeah. So some of the small groups that I do and some of the connections with people talk about that all the time, mm-hmm. that it's the connection. Mm-hmm. We need to feel safe enough to be authentic and real and connect and be vulnerable. And that's the cure for the disconnection. It's the cure for fear in our body to really be present with ourselves and kind. So I think that would be the one message I hope that everybody would really take away, is to be kind with yourself.
I love that. Thank you so much. Yeah, self-compassion. I think I heard somewhere that men were put on this earth to learn how to love women, and women were put on this earth to learn how to love themselves.
Yeah.
And that self-compassion is kind of hard to tap into if you had that safety and security complex when you were a child. Because for some reason, subconsciously, deep down inside, you don't deserve that because you didn't have that. So the body didn't know that. The mind didn't know that. It wasn't a part of your normalcy. And looking at Maslow's law, I think to put it out there for everybody and ending with this, safety and security is the number one thing that we all need to feel. And if we really, really close our eyes, and we really are really practical with ourselves and really honest with ourselves, we have a bed to sleep on. We still have food to eat. Hopefully we can get out for that, even if it's just an hour outside, but we know that it's not forever. I think to keep that in mind, that self-compassion is just really, really important, but we are truly safe and, they're trying to keep us safe. So understand that that's what they're trying to do. And I'm a little bit of a conspiracy theorist, so I'm not going to go there, but taking this time at hand to do that. So Lynn, thank you so much for being on the Awaken Beauty podcast. Where can everybody find you? And can you share your website, please?
Well, first I wanted to say thank you for having me.
Yes.
I always love talking about this because it's so helpful for people to understand and to have that inspiration that there's things that they can do.
Yeah.
So my website is lynnfraserstillpoint.com. I'm on Insight Timer. I'm on YouTube. Everywhere that I am, it's all Lynn Fraser Stillpoint. And you go to my website. Those daily practices, which everyone is welcome to come to, are at 8 a.m. Eastern. And for the last 3 weeks, and we'll continue this for a while, I've been hanging around for another 20 minutes so people could have a chance to share, ask questions, or say, this is what's coming up. And then my Sunday classes are at 10 a.m. Eastern for an hour and a quarter. And right now, in March and April, we're doing Peaceful Mind. I had no idea this was coming. But, and I've made those free now. And then in May and June, we're going to do work on resilience and strength. Wonderful. So people are also very welcome to come to that. And the educational and inquiry part of that is also on my YouTube channel. So you could last 2 weeks, we've been working with anger. It's a lot coming up for people. And it's just a variety of different things. So there's really a lot of easy ways to get support and to tune in. And if you want to join me, you're more than welcome to do that.
And can you share the name of your book one more time for us, please?
Friends with Your Mind, How to Stop Torturing Yourself with Your Thoughts. And I have a new book that I'm working on right now called Ordinary Trauma, Extraordinary Healing.
Ooh, I like that.
With the pain of being human.
Wonderful. Well, you are a gift to so many, Lynn. And I appreciate you so much. And a reminder to everybody that the heart, the energy from the heart is so much more powerful than it is the mind. So we try to deal with everything up in the mind, but if we can open up the heart, that energy expands out up to 7 feet from outside of us. If we can just open up our heart and just not even have to say something to people sometimes, and just have that heart space open for ourselves and then expand it to somebody else is really healing in itself. So thank you for doing that with us today. And I'm extending my heart back to you, and everybody will feel it that listens to the podcast on this episode. So thank you so much. And all of you on the Awaken Beauty podcast, please like and subscribe wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. Leave any comments or ahas that you had from this great, rich, beautiful time today with Lynn. And until next time, stay sane, get sleep, and bring your sexy back. All right, ladies, if you're looking for natural, organic, solution-based beauty and superior CBD, go to evoquebeauty.com. That's EVOQbeauty.com and receive 25% off your very first order with the code AWAKEN. Again, that's EVOQbeauty.com. Type in the code AWAKEN for 25% off your first order. Well, hello, Awaken Beauty. Thank you so much for joining the show today. Were you inspired? Please leave a comment or your own personal aha moment so others can capture exactly what you did. Also, please like and subscribe wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. And if you're interested in high-quality natural products for your hair, skin, and wellness, including organic CBD, please visit evoquebeauty.com. Again, that is evoquebeauty.com, EVOQbeauty.com. And until next time, darling, stay sane, get sleep, and bring your sexy back.